this is the moment that we've all been waiting for. In a few hours from now, you're going to be speaking first to the new Saudi energy minister. How significant is this for the market?
I think it's incredibly significant. I mean, a lot of people in this market who have covered energy for years know Prince Abdulaziz very well. I mean, he is the ultimate technocrat. He has spent more than 3 decades in the ministry working on energy issues. But there are other participants in the market who don't know him, who've only seen Khalid al-Falih steer OPEC through the post-2014 crisis. So he's going to be a new voice to them. And so they're looking to hear, will Saudi Arabia stay the course on whatever it takes in terms of rebalancing this market? Will they continue to want to work closely with Russia? What do you do with countries whose compliance has been challenged? Nigeria, Iraq. So he has a really, I think, an important challenge today to come out and reassure the market that Saudi Arabia remains committed to this.
And Khalid al-Falih, total class act, definitely someone that's going to be missed. The real question, though, is, as you say, setting the priorities for Saudi Arabia and really for OPEC as well.
I mean, they are the leaders of OPEC. I mean, they drive the OPEC bus. So what they say, they have the most important voice. So to hear from Prince Abdulaziz today, we're really looking to hear the strength of the commitment. I mean, how much is Saudi willing to bear the burden of adjustment? How much are they willing to basically whip the other members of the producer organization to get their compliance together? It is, I mean, he's up for the challenge. He has spent years working on OPEC issues for his country, doing the bilaterals with a number of countries on energy issues. But the voice really matters in the age of Trump, when you can have social media, tweets from Trump.
You've got a window when the president's actually asleep, right?
Yeah. And then to see what he comes out with. And we've seen a situation where the fundamentals in the oil market actually look to be improving. We're starting to see inventory draws in the United States. The marginal barrels are clearing. But all of that can change if we have a tweet about the trade war. So how do you deal with responding to things that are out of your control that come from Washington?
Indeed. So what do you think the message to the market is going to be, particularly at a time when we see supply-side issues pretty much under control by the OPEC group, but one thing that's out of their control is demand. And oil has a demand problem right now.
And not just like the real physical demand issues, but also sentiment. I mean, sentiment has been so bearish since the trade war tweets resumed. I think what OPEC can do is they can assure the market that they are going to be nimble, they're going to be agile, that they're ready to respond. I mean, that's all they can do is signal their determination and willingness to work together to see this through.
Do you think his appointment also means that there's going to be a renewed focus within Saudi Arabia and also perhaps within the OPEC group about the Aramco IPO? Certainly puts a lot more pressure to perhaps get prices up in order to accelerate that process.
And that was part of his downfall, supposedly.
I mean, I think for the prince, I think he's going to signal, again, Saudi's real commitment to this. I mean, there are issues still about, which I'm not sure he's going to address, about where is this going to be listed, valuation. I think he can clear up questions about what the relationship is going to be between the ministry and Aramco going forward. I think those are the issues that he can address. But this is a really big policy imperative for Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. I mean, he wants this IPO. He wants it done on a fast timeline. And so I think it's all hands on deck to get this done.
Absolutely, and they need it. I mean, on the reporting that we've done over the last several years in particular, Vision 2030, the absolute necessity of driving that economy away from being solely based on the price of oil. It has to be done.
This is critical for the diversification drive, and the Public Investment Fund is at the center of this. So I think it's really important when we see, how close to the Public Investment Fund, the role they will be playing in this IPO, and how they will use the proceeds to fuel diversification. I mean, they have an incredible challenge with 70% of their population under the age of 40. They have to create millions of new jobs for university and school leavers. And so this is not something that they can really afford to wait on. I think it's an urgent issue.
In terms of what happens next, I have to ask, to have this interview with the Undersecretary of the Treasury, we're talking about tariff financing. You obviously saw our interview exclusively with Prime Minister Saad Hariri last week. Essentially, I was asking him about that. I was talking about, the U.S. relationship. He said, listen, we're on board with what the United States is trying to do. Yes, it hurts us in terms of the financial community here in Lebanon, and that does have an impact on the economy. However, we want to stay within the U.S. financial system. We want to be able to peg to the dollar, so we're going to go ahead and comply. Essentially, what we've seen today is a warning to the international shipping community that, if you're not going to allow us to buy you off, we're going to blacklist you.
No, I mean, I think this is how the United States has been very rigorous
Literally
in
gun
enforcement.
diplomacy,
Yeah,
isn't it?
gun enforcement. And it comes at a time when we don't really know quite what the U.S. policy is going to be. You have someone like Brian Hook out there basically saying, look, we are not going to allow Iran to sell any barrels of oil. We're not going to give them sanctions relief in advance of any talks. And yet you have signals from others in the administration that there could be a meeting between President Trump and President Rouhani on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly opening. So we don't know clearly how this policy is going to shake out. If we continue to pursue maximum pressure, blacklist ship owners, that does not seem necessarily to be something that's a carrot for the Iranians. And so are we going to see potentially more escalation, or is there a path to de-escalation? I think we still are not nearly taking on board the risks that are in the region because of this crisis. I mean, I feel like we're one accident away from a much more serious situation.
Right. Helima, let's quickly talk about the price outlook as well.
Yes.
With the prospects of perhaps deeper cuts on the horizon now, is this the time to go long oil?
I mean, I think what we really need to watch is, the fundamental picture does look like it is improving. Can we stay the course on this and get back into the sort of low 60s WTI? I think that is certainly in the realm of possibility if we do not have, further deterioration on the macro picture. We do have to really watch what happens in terms of the trade war, because that is a huge headwind for oil. And the other potential headwind for oil I think we need to watch is what happens on the Iranian story. If President Macron is successful in getting this $15 billion credit line backed by oil for the Iranians, that is potentially close to 700,000 barrels of new Iranian exports on the market. That is a huge lift for OPEC to have to contend with. I think those are the two bear case stories. Again, the fundamental picture looks like it is improving, and we still have this fraught geopolitical backdrop in the Middle East, which could also push prices higher. So we have to see how this story shakes out. Trade war, shooting war.
And the real question is there, don't trade on the tweet.
I know, but don't trade on the tweet. But what we've really seen is crazy intraday moves because of the tweets. On April 26th, we had President Trump out there tweeting that he had spoken to the Saudis, he had spoken to OPEC, and they were going to be helpful. Oil was down more than 3% on that tweet. When you talk to people in the Secretariat, they were not aware of that conversation ever having taken place. Yeah. And so we do see the ability of these tweets, at least intraday, to cause very significant swings in the market.
Hey everybody, it's Hadley Gamble from our new CNBC Middle East Bureau in Abu Dhabi. Thanks for stopping by. Now to watch more, you can try one of the videos that just popped up on your screen. And don't forget to subscribe.